Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to start a new series of videos. I'm going to solve exercises from a Python book. The book is called Python for Everybody, and I highly recommend it for beginners. It's actually a book made by Chuck Severance, or also known as Dr. Chuck. Uh, he also has a course on Coursera, on edX, on his YouTube channel, where he teaches a beginner's course for Python, and he has this really good book called Python for Everybody, which he offers for free. I will put the links to the book, to Dr. Chuck's website, which you can see right here. It's called Python for Everybody, and you can get all the lessons and the book right here. I'm just going to solve the exercises, since I'm also using this book to teach an introduction to Python course. I thought it would be helpful, maybe it would be helpful for other people as well, so I'm going to put these videos on YouTube. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start with the chapter 2 exercises, since in the chapter 1 there's no code to write in the exercises. Okay, so um, just get the book Python for Everybody and go to the chapter 2 2.15 section where there are the exercises, and we will get started right away. Okay, so first I'm just going to create a folder. Just navigate to my desktop, make a directory for okay, so we are at chapter 2 again, 2, and I'm going to open this. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. And if you want to get started with installing Python on your machine on Windows, or maybe you're using Linux, and you want also to install Visual Studio Code, make sure to check out my other videos, the videos in my Django tutorial series, where you learn how to install Python on your machine and also Visual Studio Code. I'm going to put the link in the description as well. Okay, so I'm just going to open the folder I've just created using Visual Studio Code. Okay, so here I'm just going to, inside this chapter 2, I'm going to create a new file for exercise 2, exercise2.py. Now, let's read first the exercise. So we just need to write a simple program which uses the input function to prompt the user for their name and welcome them. This is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Let's write the code. Okay, so the input function in Python is really easy to understand. You just print something to the screen to ask for the user for the input, and whatever the user puts as an input, you take it and you save it into a variable that you can decide to name as you wish. So I'm just going to declare a variable called name, where I'm going to store the name that I'm going to receive from the user, and for that I'm going to use the input function. And inside I'm just going to put a message inside double quotes, which I want to display into the screen to prompt the user to enter his name. So I'm just going to say enter your name. Okay, and then I'm just going to print hello and the name of the person. Okay, um, let's just run this code and see. Okay, as you can see, I get a prompt here, so I'm just going to enter my name. Okay, this seems to be working. Oh, there's only a small issue with the text formatting here. Let's make it look better. Here I'm going to put a new line here. Okay, now let's run it. Okay, now it's better. You see the prompt now is in the next line, so it looks much better. Okay, now it's greeting me by my name. That's nice. Let's see. Well, that's about it. That's what the exercise asks you to do. Just a small change here. Okay, so that's it for exercise 2. Let's go to exercise 3. We just need to write a program to prompt the user for hours and rate per hour to compute the gross pay. Okay, so we're going to use the input function again to get the number of hours, to get the rate, and then we have to perform a calculation. Okay, we don't have to worry about the decimal places. Okay, let's create here a new file with exercise3.py. I'm just going to kill this. Okay. So first we need to get, let's see, we need to get the number of hours and then the number of rate. So I'm just going to call this variable hours, and I'm going to get an input, enter hours. Okay. I'm going to call this rate. And now I'm just going to calculate pay, which will be hours time rate, and then just print. And then pay. Okay, so for you who know a little bit of Python, you might already notice that there's something not right here. So if we try to execute this, okay, so first we get the prompt to enter the hours. I'm just going to enter 24, enter the rate to 12.5, and you see we have an error because we have a type error. That's because when we get the hours here, we input an integer, for example 24, but actually the input gives us a string, so we are saving hours as a string. There is an easy solution for that. We just have to convert what we get from the input into an integer for hours and into a float for rate. So that is pretty easy in Python. We just do, we wrap this into an int. So what this does is the input we get here, we convert it into an integer. And for rate, we do the same, but we convert it into the float. Okay, let's try this now. I'm just going to enter number of hours, 24, 12.5, and we get the pay. Everything seems to be going fine. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, we just have to execute all this into the interpreter, so we don't need to write a script for this. Let's just enter into Python interpreter, Python 3. Okay, we are inside the interpreter, so width is equal to 17 and height is equal to 12.0. Okay, so the first calculation is a floor division. You can tell that it has two division signs, which makes it floor division. And what that means is that when you the result will be an integer, a whole number. So width is 17. 17 divided by 2 in a floor division would actually give us 8. We can try that. Yes. Okay. And in this case, we're doing just division of width, which is an integer 17, and 2.0, which is a float, and it will actually give us a float which will be 8.5. Let's give it a shot. Okay, just what we expected. And here we have again division. We have a float divided by an integer, which should give us a float. Okay, just what we expected. And the last one seems to be wrong because there is no such operator in Python. So this would give us an error. Let's try this out. Yeah, okay, so it's an unexpected character because this operator doesn't exist. Okay, this exercise was just that, so we don't need to write any script for this one. Let's jump into the last one for this chapter. Okay, so we have to write a program which prompts the user for this temperature in Celsius and then convert it to Fahrenheit. Okay, that's pretty straightforward as well. Let's go to our code. So let's create another file, exercise5.py. Okay, so again, we're going to use the input function to get the temperature. Let me check real quick. So we get it into the Celsius. Okay, so I'm just going to call this cells, and I'm going to use input, enter the temperature in Celsius. Okay, and like we did before, we need to convert this into a float so we can perform calculations. Okay, now let's really quickly check the formula to convert the Celsius to Fahrenheit. I had it right here. Okay, so you have to multiply by 9/5 and then add 32. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So let's go back to our VS Code. So temperature in Fahrenheit would be Celsius times 1.8 plus 32. Okay, so let's print in Fahrenheit and then just print the temperature. Okay, let's test this out. I'm going to give this 30, and then I get the temperature in Fahrenheit 86.0. That seems to be working fine. So we just take an input and then perform some calculation, and that's just print the result into the screen. Okay, guys, these are all the exercises for this chapter. So if you find this series of videos helpful, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave comments. I'm going to continue with all the chapters into this book since I'm going to use this to teach other people as well. So I hope you'll find this useful. Also, don't forget to check out my Instagram, my Twitter, and also check out my other tutorial series on Django, which is also for beginners, where you learn how to create a web app, a simple blog. Okay, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the second video in my Python for Everybody series. So in these videos we're going to solve the exercises from the Python for Everybody book by Dr. Chuck. In the description you'll find the link to check out his course and his book, which he has put up online for free. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So I have copy pasted the exercises here, the 3 exercises for chapter 3. In the first one, we just have to rewrite the pay computation script we wrote in the previous chapter. And we just have to rewrite the computation so to give the employee 1.5 times the hourly rate for hours worked over above 40 hours. So we will take into account overtime. Okay, so just let's copy paste first the code we wrote last time. It should be in chapter 2 here. Okay, I'm just copying this. We don't need this anymore. Okay, for all you beginners, just remember these are just comments, so the Python interpreter will ignore all these lines. So here we can write our code and we can modify the one we copied from the previous exercise. So we need to get the hours from the user, we need to get the rate, and now we will change how we calculate the pay. Okay, so if the hours worked has been more than 40, we have to put a if condition there. So just check if hours bigger than 40. Okay, now we want to calculate all the hours which are above 40 to be 1.5 times the usual rate. So the pay would be so the number of hours more than 40 will be in parentheses hours minus 40. So if someone worked 45 hours, then we would have only 5 hours overtime, which will be calculated times the rate times 1.5. Okay, and now we have to calculate also the 40 hours which are with the usual rate. So plus 40 times the rate. So this would be the pay if an employee has worked overtime. Okay, and for cases when someone has worked 40 hours or less, we put an else, and we just calculate the pay the usual way, just pay equals number of hours times the rate. Okay, and then we just print, remove this line here, and we just print the pay here. Seems about right. Let's run it. Okay, so I'm gonna enter the hours 45. The rate, let it be 10. So we will have 475. That seems to be working. Let's check something under 40. So if I work 38 hours, the rate is again 10. So 380, no overtime this time. Okay, so that's it for this exercise. Okay, guys, let's continue with the next one. So for exercise 2, we're just going to rewrite again our pay program and using try and except so that the program handles non-numeric input gracefully by printing an error message and exiting the program. Okay, so let's copy first what we wrote in the previous exercise. Okay, and just put it here. We have to wrap with the try except block only the 2 lines of code which take the input from the user. So first what we do is we add a try here. Okay, and put this inside the try block just by indenting it to the right, and then we do an except here. So basically what a try except does is that the try tells the Python interpreter to try to run this code in here, and if there's something wrong, don't stop the execution of the script but just go to the except and run the except block. So in the except block, we just type in, we just have to print out a message. So put print, and we say to the user, please enter numeric input, which is right here. I'm just going to put this into quotes. Okay. So we print this error message, but if this except block is run, that means that we don't have proper input for the hours and rates, so we don't need to execute this part of the code. So we want our program to stop, to quit right here. So After this print line, we just have to run quit. This will stop the script right here and won't execute this code. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, if we give appropriate, we get an appropriate response. And let's try to run it again. I'm going to give the number of hours as a string, 45. You see, I get this error message and the program stops right there. That's what we want. And if we do another test, put the number of hours correctly, but the rate should be wrong. Again, we get an error input and the program stops right there. So this is all we need to do for this exercise. Let's move on to the third and the last one for this chapter. This is a bit longer. So for this exercise, we have to write a program to prompt for a score between 0.0 and 1.0. If the score is out of range, we need to print an error message. If the score is between 0.0 and 1.0, we have to convert it to a letter grade according to this table. So A is bigger or equal to 0.9, B is bigger or equal to 0.8, and so on until to the letter F. Okay, so first things first, let's get an input from the user. So we get an input grade using the input function. I'm just printing the message enter score. Okay. We need this input as a float, so we just wrap this with a float function, which converts it to a float. Okay, so we get the grade now. Now, first thing we have to check is if it's between 0.0 and 1.0. All the cases where the grade is less than 0 or bigger than 1.0, we need to print an error message. So we check that first. If grade is less than 0 or grade is bigger than 1. We'll just put 1.0, it's better. It should work with 1 as well. So this OR here covers all our cases that we don't want. So all the cases where the grade is less than 0 or bigger than 1.0. For this, we need to print an error message. Just print score is out of a range. Okay. Now we're going to use an elif, which means that we have to cover all the cases not covered by this if, but that fulfill the condition that we put in the elif. So elif grade is bigger or equal than 0.9. We just have to print the letter A. Okay, so we continue with this logic with elifs for the letter B, C, D. Okay, and for the, so if it's bigger than 0.8, we print the letter B here. Sorry, B. 0.7, we get a C, and 0.6, we print D. And for all the letters, for all the scores lower than 0.6, we put an else condition, which we get the letter F. So why use elif in here? Because when you do this elif grade is bigger than or equal than 0.8, we are sure to catch only the scores between 0.8 and 0.9, because if we get 0.85, we know it will be caught by this elif here, and if an elif catches it, then the code, the other elif clauses or the else clause won't be executed. So even though 0.85 is still bigger than 0.7, this won't be executed because we get only this elif condition which is caught. Okay, let's try this out. So let's give it 0.95. We get an A. Let's put a space in here so it looks better. And let's run it again. If I put 0.5, we get an F, of course. If I put 1.1, we get the score is out of range. If I put -3, again, score is out of range. If I put, for example, 0.75, we have to get a C. 0.75, we get a C. Okay, that seems to be working fine, just like we want to. Oh, the only thing we can try to cover here is that when the user enters a wrong input, for example, he enters the score written down as a string. So for that, we can put a try except block like we did in the previous exercise. So here we wrap this with a try except. So we try to get a good input, but if the user enters something like a string but which cannot be converted to a float, we go to the except clause and we print bad input or bad score, and then we want the program to quit just like we did in the previous exercise. So this part of the program is not executed. Let's try this out. So if we give something like 9, we get a bad score. And if we give a proper score like 0.93, we get what we want. Okay, so this finishes the third exercise. That's it for this chapter. I hope you find this helpful. Please comment below if you want to discuss something or you have a question about the exercises. I would encourage you to go and read Dr. Chuck's book. This is very, very good for beginners if you want to get started with Python. You can also check out my other tutorial series on Django, where you learn how to build a simple web app. It's also targeted to beginners. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and also check out my Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the third video in the Python for Everybody series. In this video, we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 4, which is about functions in Python. So we're going to skip exercises from 1 to 5, which are mostly there's a multiple choice question, and there are some others where you just have to run code on the interpreter, and we will focus on a bit more complicated exercises where you have to write your own code. So let's get started with exercise 6. In this one, we're just going to rewrite the code we wrote for the pay calculation script in the previous chapter, and we're going to turn that into a function. So we are going to call this function compute pay, and it will take only two parameters, hours and rate. Let's go to the code we wrote last time. Okay, so I'm just going to copy paste this into my new script here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to put this block of code inside of a function, and we will leave out only the input and the getting of the hours and rate from the user. Okay, so this is the part that we want to put inside a function. Okay, let's start. So how do we define a function in Python? We just write the keyword def and the name of the function, which we're going to call compute pay, and it will take hours and rate. Okay, and end this with a colon. So these are the two arguments of the function, and we want all this code to be inside the function, so we indent it to the right. Okay, so now if hours is bigger than 40, we do the calculation of overtime, else we calculate the usual way. After we calculate the pay, we have to return it. Okay, so now we have the function compute pay. If you give it hours and rate, it will calculate the pay for you. So we want to move the input from the user after we define the function. Let's go here. So now we have the defined function. We get the input from the user, hours and rate, and now we want to call the function. So we want to calculate the pay. So we will call the function and we'll save the result it returns into a variable pay. So this is how we call compute pay. Compute pay, and we give as arguments what we took from the user, hours and rate. Okay, and the last thing we want to do, we want to print the pay. So print, we'll just say pay, and then here. Okay, so let's try this out. So we're asking for hours, 45, 10, and we get the pay. So it's pretty much the same thing we did in the last chapter, but when you put the calculation of the pay inside the function, now you made it reusable. So you can reuse, you can call this function whenever you want. Okay, so that's it for exercise 6. Let's go to exercise 7. Exercise 7, it's a similar exercise again. We just have to rewrite code we wrote in the last chapter again, and then make it into a function. Okay, so we want to create the compute grade function, which takes a score as its parameter, so only one argument, and returns the grade as a string. Okay, let's go get the code from the last chapter. So here is the code. I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, so again, the block of code we want to put into a function is this one. This is where all the logic happens, where we check the grade and we give an appropriate letter. Okay, so we will put this into the function compute grade. So we're going to define compute grade here. It's going to take one argument, which will be the score. I've called it grade, but so I'm just going to leave it grade for simplicity. It doesn't matter. Okay. And then we're going to indent all of this to the right to make it part of the compute grade function. So when we define this compute grade, it has to return a letter. So in this case, when the grade is less than 0 or 1.0, we just have to print the score is out of range, and for the others, we return the appropriate letter. We can do something like this to edit this fast. Okay. I'm just going to remove this print and do a return. Oh, sorry. Now I have to edit my return statement. Okay, so what this does is the same like we did before, but instead of printing the letter, we have to return it. Okay, so now after we define the compute grade, we have to call it and use it and also get the input from the user. So again, I'm going to move this block of code to the bottom. So we define the function first. Now we have the same. We try to get the grade from the user. except something, an error happens, we print a bad score and we quit. But if we get a valid grade, then we have to calculate the return grade and print it. So we're going to call compute grade, and we're going to give an input the grade we get from the user. So this will return us the letter, and then we have to print it. Okay, let's try this out. So if we enter the score 0.95, we get an A. Okay, so if we get something like 1.1, oh sorry, I have to run it again. So we get a score is out of range. So why, if you are wondering why it prints this none here, it's because for this case we return nothing, and so it's better to maybe make this also into a return. So now if we enter 1.1, it just prints score is out of range. Okay, so all we did here is we put all the if and elif statements inside a compute grade function, which returns a letter. It takes a grade as an argument and it returns a letter. So this makes it, again, this code reusable, so we can call this function whenever we want. And the other part is the same as we did in the last chapter. Okay, these were the only two exercises for this chapter that we were going to write code for. Okay, thank you for watching. I really hope you find these videos helpful. If you do, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment if you have something to ask me. Also, make sure to check out my Twitter and Instagram. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the fourth video in my Python for Everybody series. In this video, we're going to solve the exercises in chapter 5, which had discussed the topic of iteration. So let's get started with the first exercise. In the first one, we just need to write a program which repeatedly reads numbers until the user enters done. So basically for that, we have to implement an infinite loop, which we need to break when a certain input is given by the user, in this case the string done. So when this string done is entered, we need to print out the total, the count, the average of the numbers. If the user enters anything other than the number, then a number, then we can detect their mistake using try and except. Okay, let's try to write this. First of all, since we need to calculate the total, the count, and the average, first we need to declare a total, which will be 0. First, also a count, which we also initialize at 0. And now since we need an infinite loop, we will use a while loop and while true, which means that the condition will be always true and the loop will be continuous, will be executed in infinity unless we break it. Okay, so we want to get an input from the user. So let's call this into a string value, since we are going to take it as a string. It will be using the function input, enter a number. Okay, so after we take the number, we take the string value. We need to check if it's really a number. So for that, we need to use try and except. So try to convert this string to a number. If it can be converted to a number, then we already have a correct input from the user. So if this string value can be converted into a float, then everything is working fine. And if that isn't true, then we need to handle this exception. And in that case, we need just to print. We need to detect the mistake and print an error message, which should be invalid input. And if the user gives an invalid input, we don't want to continue executing this iteration of the loop, so we just write continue, so it continues with the next iteration. Okay, so after we get the value from the user, we need to calculate also the sum and the total and the count. So for that, for each number we get, each value, we add it to the total. So we have the sum of all the numbers, and we also increase the count by 1 for each iteration. So the total will be total equals the value. Okay, so we just increment the total by the value, and we increment the count by 1. Okay, there's a shorthand version for these two, but we don't need it at the moment. Okay, so after this while loop, oh, we forgot about the breaking of the loop, where we need to break it. So after we get the input, we first check if the input is a string done. If string equals done, then we break the loop. Okay, that's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So this is everything we need inside our loop. Now that we have the total and the count, we can just print it. So we need to print total, count, and average. So we can print total here, count, and the average should be the total divided by the count. Okay, let's try to run this. Enter a number, 10, 4, 2, and I'm going to enter done. Okay, so that seems to be correct. The count is 3, the sum is 16, and the average is 5.3. That seems to be working fine. So this is all we need for this exercise. We already did the try except block, we did the calculations, and we also check for the input done. Okay, let's get on with the next one. So we need to write another program that prompts for a list of numbers, but in the end it just prints the maximum and the minimum instead of the average. Okay, let's copy this code first so we can modify it according to our needs. Okay, we don't need the total, we're gonna need the count. So we get the input, if it's done then we break it, we try to convert it to the float, and then we get if we get an exception then we print an invalid input and the continue. Okay, so that's this is the part we don't need. So now first, so we should have an initial value for the minimum and the maximum, and that should be the first value we get from the user. But to ensure that it is the first value, then we just need to check if the count is 0. Count will be 0 only in the first iteration because we will increase it. So if count is equal to 0, then we specify that the mean value is equal to value. Also, the max value is equal to value. So because we need to set it up to an initial value, and then we can compare it to the other numbers that the user gives as an input. Okay, so then we can write here an elif condition. So if it's not the first iteration, then we need to check if value is smaller than the minimum value, than the current minimum value, then the new mean value will be the value we have at this, which the user has inputted at this iteration. And then we can write another elif. If the value is bigger than the max value, then we can set up the max value to be the current val on this iteration. Okay, and in the end we just increment the count by 1 so that we make sure that this code here is executed only once, only in the beginning. Okay, so maybe this is a bit more complicated than you thought, but I couldn't think any other way to solve this exercise without using lists, because lists will be introduced in the next chapters. So I just try to find a solution without using lists. Okay, so now we have the mean and the max. So we just print here mean and max. Okay, let's try this out. So I give them number 45, 23, 12, 0, -1, and then I print I want it to be done. So -1 is the minimum and 45 is the maximum. That seems to be working fine. Okay, so anything, oh, we also need to check for the invalid input, if this works or not. So let's run it again. So I'm going to give 23, 11. Now I'm going to give an invalid input. So I get an invalid input and I continue to the next iteration. I give 0 and then I want to be done with it. So I have 0 as a minimum and 23 as a max. Okay guys, so this is my solution. If you have a better suggestion on how to solve this exercise, please leave a comment below. I hope you find this helpful. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out my Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the 5th video in my Python for Everybody series. So today we're going to solve the exercise for chapter 6, which talked about strings. So let's get started with it. So in this exercise we have this string where we have to extract the portion only after the colon here. For that, the exercise suggests that we use the find method and then string slicing to extract that portion. So to be clear, this is the string and we need to extract this portion right here. Okay, so first thing is we need to find the index of the colon character right here. So that is pretty easy because Python provides the function find, which we can use to right now. So we can do str dot find, and then we will give as an argument the character we want to find in the string. So I'm just going to give the column here. Okay, first we can test this. I'm just going to print this real quick so we can run this script. Okay, as you can see, this gives us 18, which is the index of the column right here. Okay, that's good. Now let's assign this index to the I'm just going to call this call index. Okay, so now we want to use string slicing to get only this portion. Okay, so this is how we do it. So again, string, and then we start to slice from column index +1. We want to do this +1 because we just want to take only the part after the column. So since the index of the column is call index, then we want to start from call index +1, and then we were going to use this notation. And for the right limit, we don't have to assign anything since we want to take all the portion until the end of the string. So we just leave it like this. Okay, and then we can just print this to make sure we have everything right. I'm just going to put this inside the print statement. Okay, let's run it. Okay, that seems to be working fine, but we're not done yet because we need to convert the extracted string into a floating point number. So I'm just going to call this num is equal to float, and this float function converts this into the float that we want. Okay, so we can try to test this by printing the number and then printing the type of the number. Okay, let's run this. And here it is. We get the extracted portion that we wanted, and it is of the type float. Okay, okay, guys. So uh, the important part is here is for you to be able to go and read the Python documentation and read about the different functions and methods we can apply on strings. They are really handy, and you can do a lot of stuff with them, like the find function is a really good example. This was I think this would be a really short video because this was the only exercise in the chapter where you have to write some lines of code. I hope you found this helpful. I'm going to continue with the next chapters in the next videos. So I really hope you derive some something from all these videos, and I hope you keep on learning Python. Don't forget to check out my other series on Django, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to my sixth video in the Python for Everybody series. In this video, we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 7 of the Python for Everybody book, which is about reading and writing files with Python. Okay, let's get started. So in the first exercise, we just need to write a program to read through a file and print the contents of the file line by line, all in uppercase. Okay, but for this, you first have to download this text file. You will have a link in the book, which you can find in the website. Okay, so I have already have downloaded this mbox short.txt right here. So I have it, make sure to have it in the same folder where you will have the Python script which you're going to execute, okay? Because that makes sure that Python really finds the file uh, inside the same folder where the script is being executed. Otherwise, you'd have to provide the full path of the file. But at the moment, don't worry about the path, just make sure to put it in the same folder as the script. Okay, let's get started. So to open the file, we will use the open function in Python. So we can just use open and save all the contents of the file in a file handle, which I'm going to call fhand. And then I'm going to open the file, which is called mbox short-short.txt. So I'm putting the file name here in as a string, and then I'm giving the mode in which I want to open the file. Since I only want to read the file, I'm just putting R here. Okay, so now I have the file handle which can be iterated. Okay, so I can do something like this. For line in fhand, I can just print every line. Let's try this out. Let's see if this works. We have an error. You probably will see something like this. That's because Python is trying to find the text file inside this py4e folder, but I have it in the chapter 7 folder. So I'm just going to move into the chapter 7 folder. Okay, so now if I try to execute again, okay, this I have to. Okay, now I'm okay. So if I execute now my Python script, you'll see that it's already printing all the lines in my text file. Okay, but as always, make sure to move into the folder where you have the text file and the script. Okay, so now we've done most of the exercise. We print it line by line. We just need to convert it all into uppercase. That's really easy with Python. So line is just a string in this fhand. So what we can do is we can use the ready function, which is upper. Sorry, it should be just upper, if I remember correctly. I'm just going to try this. Okay, so this seems to have worked. Let's kill this and try this again. Yeah, as always, I'm having to move to. Okay, so if you see now right here in my console, you can see that all the text is in capital letters. That's because we used upper. Okay, so the first exercise was really easy. So let's continue with the next one. So in the second exercise, we need to write a program which will prompt the user for a file name and then read through the file and look for the lines of the form like this, which start XD spam confidence. Okay, so when we encounter this line, we will just pull apart and extract the floating point number. If you remember, we already did that in the previous chapter. We're going to count this line and then compute the total of the spam confidence values, which are these values here. And when we reach the end of the file, print out the average spam confidence. Okay, you can take a look at the two files we have. So let's see mbox short. If you see that there are multiple lines which have this pattern right here, and we only need to extract the floating point number. Okay, let's get started with this. So first, I'm going to need to get the file name from the user. So I'm just going to use the input function, and I'm going to save the file name into a variable called file name. I'm just going to use the input and enter the file name as the message for the user. Okay, so after I get the file name, now I will use open to read the file. So I'm just going to use open, and file name will be the argument, and I'm just going to use read as a mode since I only need to read the file. Okay, so now we have the contents of the file in the fhand, which we can iterate. So we can do for line in fhand, and then inside here we need to get only the floating point numbers. Okay, if we see into the files in, just let's check out the pattern. So the dspam confidence, we have a space before the floating point number, so it would be better to check for the index of the space like we did in the previous chapter, but there we checked for the colon. So in this case we're going to check the index of the space, and then we're going to slice this string starting from the next element after the space. So if we get the index of this character, the space here, and then we can slice the string to get only this part. Okay, let's try to write this. So I'm going to first I'm going to find the index of the space. I'm just going to call this space index, and then in line dot find, and then I'm going to give as an argument just a single space. Okay, so this will give me the index. Now to get the floating point number, I'm just going to call this my num. I'm going to slice the string, the line, starting from space index plus 1 until the end. Okay, so let's try to print this to see if this works. Let's execute this. So enter the file name mbox.txt. Oh, okay, the same error as before. I'm just going to move into, okay, and I'm going to execute this again. mbox.txt. Okay. Oh, so it's just printing every line. We forgot to add the condition to perform a check if the line looks like this. So to do that, we just need to add an if condition if the entire line starts with this string x dspam confidence. Okay, so we can do this right now. So right here I'm going to add this if condition if line dot starts with, I'm going to put, okay, so all this code is going to be executed only if the line starts with this. Don't forget the colon here. Let's run this again. mbox.txt. Okay, so as you can see, this seems to be working fine. We only get the floating point numbers printed. Okay, that's great. That's what we want. So now we want to calculate the, so we want to get all these values, and we want to calculate the average of the spam confidence values. To do that, we need to calculate the sum, and we have to count the number of these lines. So how we can do that? First, we declare two variables, count, which we initialize at 0, and the total confidence which we're going to initialize to 0. Okay, so for each number, I'm not going to print this, but I'm just going to increase the total confidence by my num, and then I'm going to increment the count by 1. Okay, so after this for loop is executed, we have the sum and the count of all the spam confidences. Okay, so after this I just need to print the average, so print average spam confidence and a space here, and I'm just going to print total confidence divided by the count. Let's run this. Let's see this works. mbox.text. Okay, we have an error. Yes, of course. We are trying to since we get the extract, so when we extract only the floating point number, we still have it as a string, so we need to convert it to a float in order for to perform operations on it. So here I'm just going to convert this into a float. Okay, let's try this again. mbox. Okay, so we get for mbox the average 0.89, and that's the result we want. Let's try it for mbox short. mbox short.text, and we get 0.75 something. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so this is all for this exercise. Let's get on with the next one. I'm just going to kill this terminal. Okay, now we this is just a fun exercise. We need to put an Easter egg into the program. So we just take the code we wrote for the second exercise and paste it here. So all we need to do here is after we get the file name input, we need to check if it's exactly nana boo boo. It's a funny phrase. And then if it is exactly that, we just need to print something to the screen. Okay, otherwise we just continue working with the file as always. So just make sure that make sure to check for this. Okay, so I'm going to perform the check right here. If file name is equal to, I'm going to copy this. Okay, so if that is the case, then I'm just going to print this message. Okay, let's put this into quotes. Okay, so we're just going to print this, and then we want to quit the program since we don't want to execute all the other parts. Okay, let's see if this works. Nana boo boo. Okay, that seems to be working fine. This was just a really more of a small fun exercise. So guys, this was it for this chapter and for this video. I really hope you find this helpful. Comment below if you have questions about the code we've written for these exercises, and I hope you continue learning Python. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share if you want to support the channel. And also check out my Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page. The links will be below. Also make sure to check out Python for Everybody website, where you can find all the free resources to follow that course. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the 7th video in the Python for Everybody series. I hope you're doing the exercises yourself and checking the answers here. So without further ado, let's get started with this chapter's exercises. So in the chapter 8, the book talks about lists. So the 3 exercises we will see today will be about lists. Okay, let's get started with the first one. So to do this exercise, first you need to download this text file. I already have it here. Make sure to have it in the same folder as the script you're going to create. Okay, I have it here in my folder chapter 8. Now, we need to use a program to open the file and read it line by line. So we're going to use what we learned in the previous video on how to open a file, and we're going to use the open function in Python. Okay, let's do that right away. So I'm just going to create a variable fhand to save the handle of the file. So I'm going to use open. I'm going to give the romeo.txt, which is the file name we want to open, and I'm just going to open it in the read mode only, since we only need to read. Let's test if this is working. I'm going to iterate in the handle. So f4 line in fhand. I'm just trying to print every line. Okay, let's see if this works. And okay, like in the previous video, we need to move to the folder where we have the script. Okay, so now I'm running this, and as you can see, it is printing everything like we want it to. Okay, so the exercise asks us to split every line into a list of words using the split function, and for each word check to see if it is already in a list. So we need to initialize a list, an empty list, and then check every word we come up into the text file, and if it is in the list, if it is already in the list, we do nothing. Otherwise, we add it to the list. Okay, so let's initialize a list we're going to call words. I'm just going to initialize this as an empty list. Now, for every line, we need to split it into a list of words. How we can do that using the split function in Python. And let's give it a try first. So print line.split. And so to split a sentence, which we have here, into all the words, we need to split by the white space only, since words are separated by a white space. So we're going to give the white space as an input here, only a single white space. Let's see what this does if we run this. Let's see. Okay. And this is exactly what we want in this case. We want every word in each line. Okay, so now we can check if now we need to iterate for every line. Inside every line we need to iterate and check if all the words in that line are already in the list. Sorry. So let's do this. So now, since we have line.split here, it's already a list. We can iterate on it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to write for word in line.split here. So we have a nested loop inside another loop. Okay, what we want to check? We want to check if this word is already in the list of words. Okay, so if word, so it's better to check if it isn't in the list, so we can add it, and we don't need to write an else statement at all. So if word not in words, what we're going to do is just words dot append, which means we're going to add an element to this words list, and we're just going to add the word. Okay, we don't need to write an else statement because we don't do nothing after that. And then we add it to the list. When the program completes, we just sort the list alphabetically and just print it. Okay, so now we should have the list right here. I'm just going to sort the list alphabetically, and I'm just going to print it. To sort the list, we can just use the function sorted, and I'm going to give words, and I can print this. Let's see what this does. And we get the list of words, like exactly what we want. We have the list of words and it is already alphabetically sorted. Let's see. Okay, so this is what we wanted in the first place. Okay, guys, I hope this was really clear, the first exercise. Let's move on with the next one. I'm just going to close the terminal here. So, in the next exercise, we're just going to write a program to read through the mailbox data. If you remember, in the previous exercise, we downloaded the files mbox and mbox short. We're going to use those again. So we're going to read through the mailbox, and when you find the line that starts with from, we split the line into words, again using the split function. And we want to know who sent the message, which is the second word in the from line, and we want to print that. And also we need to count the number of lines which have from. Okay, and we need to print the count at the end. This is really simple. So we can check, we can get the program we wrote in the previous exercise. Okay, wait. Yeah, okay. So we just need to take this mbox and mbox short. I'm just going to copy this in here, and mbox short. Okay. Now let me close this. Okay, so here we are. First, we need to get the input from the user on which file to read. So let's get that input from the user. File name equals input, enter a file name. Okay, now we need to open this file, again using open. I'm going to give file name and in read mode. Now, again, we need to iterate on it line by line. Let's move this here. For line in f hand. And we need to split the line into words using the split function again. And we just need to get the from, which is the second. So first we need to find all the lines which start with from. So this is the condition. If line dot starts with, I'm going to write here from. So this is what we want. We need to be careful here because it specifies that we need to find all the lines which start with from with the colon here. Okay, so make sure to type it like this. Okay, if we get this line, then we're going to split that line dot split using the white space. And now this is a list of all the words in that line which starts with from. Okay, and after we split this, we need to know who sent the message, which is the second word on the from line. So since this is a list, we need to get the second element in this list. Okay, and how do we get the second element? Using the index, and the index of the second element is always 1, since the first one, it starts from 0. Okay, so now this gives us the email which sent the email address which sent this email. Let's just try to print this and see. Okay, let's run this. Enter file name .text. Okay, so it seems to be working fine. Let's see if we need something else. Oh, we also need to count the lines. Okay, so to do that, we need to initialize first a count variable, which will be 0. Okay, this is standard. And now we need to increment this count by 1 only if the line starts with from. So only inside here. Count is plus bars, which means count is equal to count plus 1. It's just the shorthand. Okay, so we print this, and we also need to print the count in the end. Okay, let's just do this. Print this message. Okay, I'm just going to split this into count here and another string. Okay, let's run this again. So enter the file mbox.txt. So let's do this for mbox. Let's try this with mbox short. Okay. And we get the result we want, 27 lines, just like the exercise specifies. Okay, so this is all we need to do for this exercise. Let's move on to the other one, the last one for this chapter. Okay, so we need to rewrite the program which prompts the user for a list of numbers. If you remember, we did this before in the chapter about iteration, but this time we're going to rewrite it and use a list. It's much easier if we will use a list right now. Okay, we can go and take a look at the exercise we already solved. So this was in, if I remember, yes, no, not in chapter 4, it should be in chapter 5. Yes, okay, so this is it. We can copy and paste this. Okay, let's close this one. We are here. So if you take a look, this is much more complicated when we don't use a list. So let's see how we would do this with a list. First of all, we don't need the count anymore. We just need to initialize an empty list where we append every number that we get from the user. Okay, so I'm just going to call this my nums, and it is going to be an empty list. Okay, so while true, we get an input from the user. If it's done, we break from the loop. Else, we try to convert it into a string, to convert it from the string into a float. And then we did all this logic here to get the max and min. So we don't need this anymore. Okay, so what we just try to do here is just that while true and we get the input and it cuts through all of this, we just need to append it to the our list my nums. So my nums dot append the value. Okay, so now we have the list with all the numbers, and to just print the min and the max, we just use the built-in functions min and max. So if you do this min of my nums, it will give us the minimum of that list, and if we do this max of my nums, it will give us the maximum of that list. Okay, let's try this. So I'm going to enter the numbers 4, 5, 12, 0, minus 1, 23. And then I'm going to input done. So we get the minimum minus 1 and the maximum 23. Everything seems to work fine. As you can see, guys, this is a much more shorter code than we did in the previous chapters when we couldn't use lists since we hadn't already introduced the concept. And here you can see the power of lists and of the built-in functions in Python. Okay, so this was it for this exercise as well. Okay, guys, I hope you found these solutions helpful, and I hope you continue to learn Python and you continue to check your solutions with mine here, and don't give up on learning Python. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the 8th video in my Python for Everybody series. So in this one we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 9, which is about dictionaries. Okay, let's get started. First, make sure to have these two files again, mbox.txt and mbox.short.txt. We used this in the previous exercises, but you need these again, and make sure to save them in the folder where you will solve the where you will put the scripts for chapter 9 exercises. Okay, I already have done that, so I'm going to get started right away. In the first exercise, we're going to write a program which categorizes each email message by which day of the week the commit was done. Okay, so we're going to use the email log file, for example, mbox or mbox short. Let's see mbox short. You see that the day is written in the line which starts with from. Okay, so if you split this line by the if you get a list of words of this line, when you perform the split on the string, you can see that Saturday is the third element, the third word on that list, which has index 2. Okay, let's write the code and we will go along with that. Okay, so first we need to identify all the lines which starts with from, and then look for the third word and keep a running count of each of the days of the week. Okay, for that we will be using a dictionary. Let's get started. First, we need to open the file. and we're going to get that from the user. So we're going to get the file name from the user. I'm going to write file name equals input, enter a file name. Okay, so we get the file name from the user, and now we open it again using the open function, file name, and in read mode. Now we need to iterate line by line. So we need to add an if condition only for the lines which starts with from. So if line dot starts with from, and we need to let's first print the line so we have a better idea on how that looks like. Okay, let's run this. I'm going to run it from the terminal here. Okay, so I'm going to enter mbox.short. Let's run this manually. Dash short. Sorry about the error here. So we have an error while opening the file, which is strange since we have mbox short here. This is a strange error. Oh, okay, so the error is again, we're not in the right folder, so chapter 09, and I'm going to run this, mbox short. Okay, so as you can see, we get the lines which, so this is not exactly what we want because we only want these lines which start with from only and not with from with a colon, because only these lines have the day. Okay, so what we can do here we need to specify that we only want the lines which starts with from and a single space. Okay, so let's run this again and see. Mbox short text, and this is exactly what we want. Okay, so how can we get only the day? First, we need to split the line. This will split it by default using the space, so it will split it into the words. Let's run this and see. Oh, nice. So this is what we want in this case, and we need to get the third element on the list. So let's try to print this. So with index 2, mbox. Exactly what we want. Okay. So let's save this into the day. And now, first we need to declare, before we start looping through the lines, we need to declare a dictionary where we're going to save all the information, the days with the counters. So I'm going to declare here days equals with an empty dictionary. And now, after we get the day, I'll try to see if this day is already in the dictionary days. If not, then I'm going to, so the dictionary will be with a key the name of the day, and then as a value it will be a counter on how many times this day has been repeated into these lines. Okay, so first I'm going to check if we already have a count for this day. So I'm just going to use the days dot get and then get by the key of the day. And since the get function offers you to use a default value, I'm going to use the default value 0. That means that go and check the counter for this day, but if there's no entry for this day in the dictionary, then just put the default value 0. Okay, so um, we're going to try to get the day, and then we have to increment it by 1, and we're going to save it again into the days with a key value. Okay, so we're going to get the value and 0 if there is none, and then we're going to increment it by 1. So after this, we are going to save this value with the key day, right, like this. So this is an assignment of the value to this key. This is pretty much all we need to do in this case. Let's try to print now this dictionary days. Let's run this again. And we get Saturday 1, Friday 20, Thursday 6, which is exactly what we want because the order doesn't matter in a dictionary. Okay, so this is it for this exercise. Let's check out the next one. In this exercise, we need to read through the mail log again and build a histogram using a dictionary to count how many messages have come from each email address. So a histogram is built using the dictionary, so we just need to create this dictionary. We're going to copy some of the code we used here, since we don't have to write it from scratch. So I'm getting again the file name, I'm opening that file, and then I'm going to declare a dictionary with email addresses. Okay, and in this dictionary will have as keys email addresses from where the emails have come, and as a value the counter of how many emails have come from this particular address. Okay, like you see here in the example. Okay, to do that we need to iterate through the file, and for each line again we need to check if it starts with from, and in this time we only need to get the second word or with the index 1. So let's see and try to print this first. Writing here email. So we check for lines which starts with from, and we want to get the one with index 1. Let's comment this at the moment and try to print email. This will we need to move again to the correct folder. Okay, file name will be mbox short. We have a print here which is wrong, but anyway, as you can see, we only get the email address. It's here exactly what we want. So we're going to do the same trick again, but this time for email addresses. So in our dictionary email addresses, we're going to check for this particular email using the get function, and if it already exists, we are going to return the value, but if not, we're going to assign the value, the default value 0. Okay, and then we're going to increment the counter by 1. In the end, we just need to print these dictionary email addresses. Let's run this and see. Mbox dash short.txt, and we get this 2, 3. Let's check it here. So for Gopal, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, so it's 1. Okay, so this seems to be working just as we want it to. Okay guys, let's continue with the next exercise. Okay, so here we need to use the code we just wrote, but we need to figure out which email has the most message in a file. Okay, so we need to implement a maximum loop, which was explained in the book, to find who has the most messages and print only that email and how many messages that person has. Okay, so first let's copy the code from the previous exercise. Okay, right here. Okay, we are again getting the file name, reading. Now we need to use this dictionary, and we also need to declare a variable where we will keep the maximum maximum count, the key value for the email which has the most email sent. Okay, for the email address which has the most email sent. Let's just declare this as max. Oh, sorry. Right here, I'm just going to call this max emails, and I'm going to initialize it as 0. So now we start iterating into the file lines. We get the files which starts with from. We split them. We get the email address, and then we finished creating the dictionary of email addresses. And now we need to iterate through this dictionary to get actually the one which has the maximum number. Okay, if we had a list, we'll just use the max function, but this is a dictionary. So let's move this here. Maybe it's cleaner like this. I'm going to remove this print. So to iterate the dictionary, we just iterate through the keys for k in email addresses. Okay. Now we check if this the maximum of emails, the number we declared, is bigger than the value for this key. So how do we access the value for this key? Just using the dictionary and the key value here. Okay, so if is bigger than max emails, we can now reassign max emails to be this number, email addresses for this key. Okay, so we just check if this number is actually bigger than the maximum of emails, and we just reassign max emails to be this one. Okay, but we are still missing something here. What about the cases where well, so we have the 0. Let's first run this and see how this works. So to run this, we need just to print in the end the max emails. So this will be the key. No, so this will be the value, but we also need to get the key. So to get the key, we need to save it somewhere. So for this max emails, we need to save the key k we get here, and we can do something. So we declare two variables, max address, which we can declare it to none. And then in this one, we just do so we assign the max value, but we also assign the key for this max value, the max address. This will be equal to the key. Okay, so we just print max address here and the max emails. Let's run this and see how this goes. Let's go into the terminal and moving again. Okay, let's run this. And I'm going to give mbox short like always. Sorry about that. Okay, so we get this email 5, which which is the correct one for mbox short. Let's try for mbox. mbox.text. Okay, so this one seemed to be working exactly how we want it to. And in case we don't get an email, or for example, if this dictionary is empty, then we just leave it at none and 0. Okay, so this seems to be working fine. Let's move on with the next exercise. Okay, so the last one for this chapter. We're just going to record the domain name in this exercise instead of the address where the message was sent. So we don't need the whole email address, only the domain. Okay, so this again seems pretty straightforward. I'm going to use the code again from exercise 3. Let's copy it here. So we get the file, we open the file, but in this case, we're not going to save the email addresses, but the domains. Okay, so I'm just going to declare an empty dictionary with domains. We're going to iterate through the lines. We are checking the lines which starts with from and the space. We split the line, and let's comment this and just see again. And we're going to comment this as well. So I'm just going to print the line. Okay. And I'm going to run Python 3 for exercise 5. Mbox short. Okay, so this is the line, and we only need to get the domain here. But how do we do that? If we split the line, then the second word, or the one with the element with index 1, is the email address. But after we get the email, we need to extract only the domain from the email. Okay, so far right here, we get the email. And now to get only the domain, we need to split this string. So the email is a string. We need to split it on this @ character, and we need to get only the second part. So let's see how that works. So first let's print it so you can see email.split, and I'm going to give as the input the @ character. Let's run this for mbox short.text. Same error again. Sorry about these errors. Okay, so we get a list with 2 elements, and we only need to get the second one. Okay, So to get the domain, we do this. Domain is equal to email.split. And then we only get the second element. Let's print this just for you to see. Mbox short text, exactly what we want in this case. So now we need to do the same thing we did in the previous exercises, but only for the domains. So let's uncomment this and modify. So I'm going to use the dictionary domains and the key domain. Okay, and again I'm going to use the get function and try to get this domain, or if it doesn't exist, I'm going to get the default value 0, and I'm going to increment it by 1. Oh, sorry, I got this typo here. Okay, so in the end, we just need to print the domains dictionary. Let's run this. Mbox short.text, and we get this. Let's check it with so for Mbox short, for Berkeley, we get 4. Okay, for this other one, 6. Okay, so everything seems to be working fine. Okay, guys, so this was the last exercise for this chapter. I hope you're still working on this and you're trying to solve these exercises by yourself. Okay, thank you for watching again. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter, and you can help support this channel. Oh, so the next video will also be a little bit different. I'm also uploading a mix of songs which I use when I code. So I haven't created the songs, of course. They are mostly from games or stuff like that. But those are songs which really help me get in the mood for programming, and it will be an 8-hour mix which you can use in your day-to-day work. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the 9th video in the Python for Everybody series. So in this one we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 10, which is about tuples. Okay, let's get started with the first one. Before we start, please remember to get again the files we've been using, the text files in the previous exercises, which are mbox short and mbox, and put them in the folder for chapter 10. I have already done so, so I'm going to start. Now we need to revise the program we wrote in the previous chapter. So I already have it here, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So for this exercise, we need to read the lines from a text file and pull out the addresses from the line, count the number of messages from each person using a dictionary. So we have already done that, and we have in this email addresses dictionary all the email addresses and the number of messages coming from that email address. Okay, but what we need to do next, we need to print the person with the most commits by creating a list of tuples from this dictionary. Okay, so we need to sort this list in reverse order and print out the person who has the most commits. Let's run this code first and see what this prints. Okay, I'm going to the terminal here. And then I'm running this with Python 3, size 1. And I'm using mbox short. So we get this dictionary which is unordered, and we need to order this by the values. Okay, so that is what we're going to do using tuples, of course. Let's minimize this. So now we need to iterate over the elements, over the key values from the dictionary and put them in a tuple. How do we do that? Well, it's pretty easy. So for key, comma, value in email addresses, this is the way we can iterate through email addresses email addresses dot items. This method converts this dictionary into an iterable, into a list with key value pairs. And this is exactly what we want in this case. First, we can before we start iterating, we can also declare an empty list, which is going to be like this. And now in this list, we need to add the tuples of key values. But since we want to order them by the value, it's better if we construct the tuple with the value first and the key second. Okay, so in list we're going to append the value first, and so value first and the key next, and we are going to put this into a tuple. So what is this thing doing? This is just adding to the empty list a value key tuple. Let's just print it so you can see what this gives us. Okay, and here in the terminal, again for mbox short. Okay, so this is what it gives us. This is a list with tuples and the value is first. So now if we sort this list, it will sort the tuples by the value, by the first element. So it will just sort them by this number of messages coming from this email address, which is exactly what we want. So before we print the list, we sort it, and we want to sort it into a reverse order. So the largest first, reverse equals true. Let's see what this does now. Box. Okay, so this is doing exactly what we want, and we want to print in the end only the person who has the most commits. So that would be the first element in our list. So we can just print this, and we should get this. Let's try this out. For mbox short, we get this one, and for mbox text, we get this email, which is exactly what we should get. If you want, you can format this. So this is a tuple now, the person with the most commits, and the first element is the number and the second is the email address. So there's a way you can print this. Let's just call this person tuple equals list 0, and then we print person tuple 1 first and person tuple 0. Let's run this. Inbox.text. So we get this one in the same format as the exercise asks for. Okay, so this is it for this exercise. Let's move on to the second one. So in the second one, we need to count the distribution of the hour of the day for each of the messages. So to get the hour, we need to go to the from line and find the time string, and then split the string into parts using the colon character. Since after we accumulate the counts for each hour, we print out the counts one per line, sorted by hour as shown below. Okay, so let's see how a from line looks here. So this is the part we are interested in. We need to get the hour. So what we can do first is split this line so we get all the words, and then we can access the hour and the hour and the minutes and the seconds, and then we can split it again to get only the hour. Let's try to write this. But before, we can copy again the code from this exercise, and we can modify it so we don't have to write everything from scratch. Okay, let's go here. So again, we're reading the file, we're opening it, and we're creating a dictionary, we're declaring an empty dictionary. And now we check the lines which start with from. And if let's comment this at the moment. After we perform a line split, let's see how this one looks. Print email. Okay, let's run this. For exercise 2, mbox short. Okay, sorry, I wrote the name of the file wrong. Okay, so we want to access the hour, which is if we start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is the sixth word in this line. So the element with index 5. So first, let's try to get here the time and try to get the element with index 5 and print it. Okay, let's run this again. Mbox short. Okay, so we get this. Now we need to split the string again and get only the hour. Okay, so to get the hour, let's try this, will be time dot split using the column character, and let's see what this gives us first. Mbox short. Okay, so now we need only the first element of this list. So here we can get the index 0, file name, and then mbox short again. Okay, so this is exactly what we want. Okay, we get the hour now. We can change here the name of the dictionary so it better shows what we are doing. So I'm calling this hours of day, and it's an empty dictionary. So we're going to do the same what we did for email addresses. I'm just changing the name here of the dictionary, hours of day, and changing this code not for email but for hour. So what this is doing is going to the dictionary and trying to get the value for this hour. If there is no value, for example, when in the first iteration, when the dictionary is still empty, it will give us 0 as a default, and then it is going to increment that by 1. So whenever it finds a line where the hour is, for example, 16, it will, since the dictionary is empty, it will give us the value 0, and it will increment it by 1. So we count the number of lines where the time is 16, which is exactly what we want in this case. So let's try to remove this print here, and then we see what we have already done. Let's print this hours of day dictionary. Let's run this. Box short text, and we get this unordered dictionary. Okay, so what the exercise is asking for, just once we have accumulated the counts for each hour, print out the counts one per line sorted by hour. Okay, so how do we do this sorting? We have the hour as a string, and that is fine because if we get a tuple with a key value for each element in the dictionary, for each key value pair, we then can sort that list of tuples. And the way that the sorting in the tuple works is that for each tuple, for example, for each one, for this one and this one, it will start to compare them by the key first, by the first value in the tuple. And the string comparison, in this case, it will work the same as if these were integers. Okay, so what we need to do is, again, we need to create a list of tuples for each item in the dictionary. And how do we do that? We use again this code here, but with some modifications. We declare an empty list. Let's remove this print. And then now we need to append by key value. Okay. So we create this list and we append by key value, and then we sort this list, but not in the reverse order. So let's remove the comments here. So we just sort the list and try to print it. Print list. Let's see what this gives us. For mbox short text. What? Oh, okay. So the name of the dictionary is wrong here. Hours of day. Let's run this again. Okay, so it has already sorted the list by the hours. So this is exactly what we want. But now I'm reminded that we can write this even in a short. We don't need to iterate the dictionary, but we can use this. We can convert this hours of day dot items into a list directly. So let's try that first. So we can just do list and convert this into a list. Hours of day dot items. So this gives us already a list of tuples, an iterable of tuples, which we can convert it into a list. So let's try to run this. Okay, so this is the same what we got before, but this is much shorter. So we don't need to iterate through the dictionary because we already get an iterable of items and we just convert it into a list, which we can then sort through. Okay, so let's remove this part. Okay, so we have a list of tuples now, and what the exercise is asking us to do is to iterate through this list and then print the hour and the number. Okay, so let's do that. After we have sorted the list, we can just do this for t in list, and then we can print t0 and t1. So the first element and the second element of the tuple for each tuple in the list. Let's run this again. Mbox short text, and this is exactly what we wanted from this exercise. Okay, so this is it for the second one. Let's go to the last exercise for this chapter. Okay, so we need to write a program that reads a file and prints the letters in decreasing order of frequency. We should convert all the input to lowercase and only count the letters A to Z. Your program should not count spaces, digits, punctuation. Okay, so we need to convert everything to lowercase and count only the letters from A to Z. To do that, let's first just declare a string of all the values we need. So I'm going to call this alphabet, and it will be just a string, or you can make it a list, but the string should work fine. And it will be just A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, S, T, U, V, X, W, Y, Z. Probably you can copy paste this from somewhere else, but let's, oh, okay, just make sure this is the right length. Alphabet, okay. Let's try to run this. Sorry. So Python 3, chapter exercise 3. Okay. So 26. Okay, 26 letters. What we want. Let's copy some code from the previous exercise. So we need to read the file. So let's get this. We need to open. Okay. So let's remove this. We open a file which we get from the user, and now we need to read the file and just print the letters in decreasing order of frequency. Now, usually when we read the file, we just open it and iterate through the lines. But since we just need to count all the letters, maybe it would be easier to just read from it and then convert it into, so read it as an entire string, the whole file. That would be much easier. Let's try how we can do that. So I'm saving all the text into a string, so it will be fhand.read. Let's see what this gives us, and print text. For mbox short.text. Okay, so it gives us the entire string. Okay, and since we need to iterate through every line in the through every character, we can just write a for loop to go through every character in this text. Okay, so for text, let's see if this works fine. Okay, for mbox short.text, as you can see, it is printing every character one by one. Now we need to check if this one of these characters is in this alphabet list, because we need to ignore everything else. Oh, but first we need to make everything lowercase, okay? Because the exercise explicitly said convert everything to lowercase. So let's see. So we have some uppercases here. So let's try to put everything into lower and remove this print here. We don't need this. Now what we want to do is check if this character is in the alphabet. And only for characters in this alphabet we create this dictionary with a counter. So let's declare the dictionary first. Frequency dictionary. It will be an empty dictionary. Okay. Now we check if the character is in the alphabet, and then we will increase the counter. So if this is in the alphabet, we then check if we already have it in our frequency dictionary, and then increment it by 1, the counter of this letter. Okay, so what we will do in this case, it will be frequency of dictionary for to get the frequency for this letter. We use the get function, which will give us we give it the character as a key, and then we get a 0 value if this key doesn't exist in the dictionary yet. So for example, in the first iteration when the dictionary is empty. And what we need to do next is to assign value a frequency for this character and add it as a key value to the dictionary. So we will do frequency dict for this value character will be this one incremented by 1. Okay, so this is how we create the counter. Let's print this first and see what we got. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so we have the unordered dictionary, which is fine, exactly what we want so far. Now to order it, we will use tuples again. And like in the first exercise for this chapter, we are going to create the tuples with the value first because we want to order them by the value. So let's copy this code and modify it accordingly. Okay. We're declaring an empty list where we will store all the tuples. And now we iterate through this frequency dictionary. We get a list of uniterable of items, and we get the key value. But we add the tuples in this order with a value first and then the key, because when we order the list, we want to order by the frequency. Okay, to see the letters which are more frequent in the text. Okay, this is what the exercise wants us to do. We don't need this part. Okay, so we get the list here, and then we sort it with reverse true because we want the letters with the highest frequency first. And let's print the list now. Let's see what this does. For mbox-short. Okay, so this is exactly what we want in this case. And let's print it more nicely. So I'm going to print for so I'm going to iterate through the list. So for letter dash frequency in list. Sorry, the frequency is first. So letter, but when I print it, I want to print the letter first and the frequency. Okay, let's see what this does. For mbox-short.text. Okay, so we have the letter. So the letter E seems to appear more, and then the letter A. Okay, so this is the third and the last exercise for this chapter, guys. Again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like. Also hit the bell notification, so the bell icon in the subscribe button, because that's the only way you can get notified whenever I upload a new video, which I'm trying to do this every day. Don't forget to check out my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the 10th video in the Python for Everybody series. In this one, we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 11, which is about regular expressions. Let's get started right away. So, in the first exercise, we need to write a simple program to simulate the operation of the grep command in Unix, but we just need to enter a regular expression and count the number of lines that match that regular expression. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Let's get started right away. So first, make sure to have again mbox text and mbox short in the same folder where you have the scripts for this chapter. I have already done so. I have here mbox short and mbox. Okay, so we need to first we need to get regular expression from the user. So we use input again. I'm going to call this regex is equal to input, and then I'm asking the user to enter the regular expression. Enter a regular expression. Also, I'm going to read through the file and then going to use this regular expression to find if it matches it in that line. Okay, so first let's open the file using the open function. Maybe you want to also get the name of the file from the user, so I'm going to add that as well. File name equals input, enter the file name, and here I'm going to add a colon as well. So I'm going to open the file name here, only in read mode. And now I'm going to iterate like always through all the lines in this file. For line in fhand. So we only need to check if this regular expression appears once in this line. So we don't need to use find all, we can only use search. So re.search, and as the first argument we should give the regular expression, which is the regex, and as the second one the string where we want to search, which is line. Okay, here you can see that we have an undefined variable. That's why we need to import the re module first. Import re right here, and now we get this. Okay, let's try to print this so we see what we have already done so far. I'm going to run this in the terminal. I'm going to go to chapter 11 and run with Python 3 chapter 11 exercise 1. I'm going to enter mbox short the text, and as an irregular expression, let's try Java with a $sign, which means that this line should end with Java. We get some matches, as you can see. And now we should also do something to perform a write strip in the line. Okay, line is equal to line dot write strip. What this does, this cleans the white spaces at the trailing white spaces in a line. So we make sure that the line always ends with Java and not with a white space. And now, as you can see, we get none for the lines where it didn't match any the regular expression didn't match anything in that line, and for others we get a match object. So for the lines we get the match object, we want to count them. So for that, let's initialize a counter at 0, and for every match, so if there is a match here, we just add an if condition, we increase the counter by 1. Okay, so let's print the counter in the end. I'm just going to run this for mbox short first, and Java, and we get 60. Okay, so let's try this with mbox, since we have an example over there. So mbox.text and Java, and we get 4218. This is exactly what we want. Let's try with another, to start with author. Okay, so I'm going to enter the file name mbox.text. We want this to start with an author. I can't find the caret on my keyboard, sorry. We get 1798. Okay, so that seems right. Okay guys, so this is it for this exercise. That's all we have to do. Okay, let's go to the next one. I'm going to minimize this. So in this exercise we need to look for the lines of this form, and we need to extract the number from each of the lines using a regular expression and the find all method. Okay, and we need to compute the average of the numbers and print out the average. Okay, so first let's get started. We need to get the file name from the user. So again, file name is equal to input enter file name. Okay, oh, we also have to import the arif module. Now we are going to iterate through all the lines. For line in file name, sorry, we need to open that first. fhand equals to open file name and in read mode. So now we're going to iterate through the fhand, and we need to find all the lines of this form. Okay, so we need to come up with a regular expression to get all the lines that look like this. So let's try something first. re.search, and then right here I'm going to add the literal. So we need this to literally say new revision. Maybe it's better to use the space like this, new revision, colon, and then another space. And now we want to have some numbers here. So I'm going to make this a digit, which is going to be at least one digit. So I'm going to use this regular expression, and I'm going to search for it in this line. So again, what this means is that we're going to search for new revision, literally the \s mean white space, and I'm going to, after the new revision with a space, I'm going to search for digits. So there should, because I don't know if all the lines should have a 5-digit number here, so I'm just specifying that there should be at least one digit. So plus means one or more. I'm going to search this, and let's see. So this is going to be the match object, and I'm going to add a condition if match print. Let's print this match dot group. What else we can do here is that we can put this inside a group, so we can only extract this part since we need only the number. Okay, so the way we can do that is now I'm going to add match.group.1, so I only get this group. If I leave group 0 or nothing, it's going to give me the whole match. Let's try this out. Okay, I'm going to run this in the terminal. Python 3. Okay, so for mbox short, okay, I get all these numbers, which is exactly what I want in this case. Now I want to get the average of the numbers, and I need to print that. There are a couple of ways we can do that, but the easiest, we can just initialize an empty list, and then we append all the numbers into this list, and we can later compute the average. Okay, so I'm going to call this nums, and I'm going to declare it as an empty list. And if there is a match, I'm going to append nums.append this one, but I need to convert, since this comes up as a string, I need to convert it to an integer. So I'm going to convert this into an integer, and let's see what this gives us. And in the end, I need to print the average, which should be the sum of this nums over the length. That is how we calculate the average. Let's run this. So for mbox.text, this gives us, okay, that's exactly what we want. Let's try this for mbox short though. Mbox short.text. Okay guys, so it seems everything is working fine. Again, just make sure to look into the regular expressions. This is a very simple one. It's mostly a literal and with a group. I hope you found this helpful. And again, don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share, to support the channel. Also check out my Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, welcome to the 11th video in the Python for Everybody series. Today we're going to solve the exercises from chapter 12, which is about network programs. Let's get started right away. So in the first exercise, we need to change the socket program, which I already downloaded. It was provided in the book to prompt the user for the URL so it can read any web page. Okay, so then we will split the URL using the slash to break it into components, and then we can extract the host name for the socket connect call. And we should also add error checking. Okay, let's copy the code first. So I'm getting this from the socket program, which was in the book. So first thing we need to do is, for this host here and this URL, we need to get it from the user. Okay, so we are going to use again input. I'm going to get the URL. It will be input enter URL. Let's put this with capital letters. Okay, Okay, so we are expecting a URL from the user. After we get the URL, we need to split it to break it into components. Okay, so let's see first what happens when we use the split function using the slash. I'm going to comment all this, so I just continue working with what I have here, and I'm just going to test it. Okay, let's test it with this URL first. Okay, I'm going to run this, enter the URL. Okay, as you can see, we have this list of strings, and always it appears that the third element, or the one with index 2, will be the host, which we need in this case. Okay, so to get the host only, we need to get the element with index 2. Let's run this again. Okay, that's what we want. Let's test this with another site. Okay, that seems to be working fine. Let's get back here. So this will be the host, be url.split, and getting everything else we need. Okay, now that we have the host, we're going to use it here. So when we do the connection, we're not going to give this fixed string, we're going to give our host. Okay, and here we need to give the URL. So the command will be, I'm going to split this into strings, plus the URL we get, plus this. Okay, and I'm going to encode it here, cmd equals .cmd.encode. Okay, so I'm creating this get request here using the URL I'm getting from the user, and then I am encoding it. Let's try if this works. I'm entering the URL. Okay, and this one seems to be working fine. Oh, it says not found. Let's try this with the URL we had here in the socket. Oh, because there is no document over there. We need to download. That's why we get not found. But let's try something else. So, okay. So this one is working just like before. So the only thing we did is we get the URL from the user, we split it to get the host, and then we construct the request by concatenating the strings together and then encoding it into bytes. Okay, so the other thing we need to do here is that we need to add error checking to handle the condition where the user enters an improperly formatted or non-existent URL. Okay, so what we can try to do here is the simplest thing is to just wrap it all into a try except. Okay, let's put a try here. So we want to handle the condition where the user enters an improperly formatted or non-existent URL. Let's put this into a try and then except here. I'm going to say the URL is improperly formatted or non-existent. try this out. Let's copy again the URL we need to test this with. Okay. Okay, so this works now. Let's try to give it an improperly formatted URL. So if I try to remove this, yeah, okay, exactly what we want in this case. Okay, so this was the first exercise. Now let's continue with the second one. Okay, so we need to change again the socket program so that it counts the number of characters it has received and stops displaying any text after it has shown 3000 characters. So the program should retrieve the entire document and count the total number of characters and display the count of the number of characters at the end of the document. Okay, let's go, let's copy again the socket program we already wrote right here. Okay, so so after we do the connection, we receive the data, and here we can try to count it. And the easiest way to do this, so the exercise wants us to only show the first 3000 characters and also to count the total number of the characters in the document. So the best way to do this would be to start an empty byte string where we will store the entire document. Okay, and then the entire stream we are getting, and then just print the first 3000. So I'm just going to call this received, and it will be an empty byte string. And every time we get the data, I'm going to remove this. So we receive the data here. If the length of the data is less than 1, we break it. That means that we aren't receiving anything anymore. But for every chunk of data we receive, we need to concatenate it to this empty string. So I'm going to do receive is plus equals to data. So every piece of data I am receiving, I'm going to add it here. And in the end, I'm just going to print the received document, but only the first 3000. So from the start until the 3000 index. Of course, I'm going to decode it, and I'm just going to print the count here. So it will be the length of the received. Oh, maybe it's better to convert this, to decode this, and then we can continue working with it. Dot decode. I'm going to remove this here. So we decode this from the byte string into a string, and then we print only the first 3000 characters and the length. Then we close the socket. Okay, let's try to run this with this URL. I'm going to enter the URL. Okay, so in this case it displays everything because everything it is 536 characters. So this should be working just like we expect it to. Okay, I think that's all we have to do for this exercise. Okay, let's continue with the next one. So in the third exercise, we need to replicate the previous exercise that asks us to retrieve the document from a URL and displaying up to 3,000 characters and counting the overall number of characters in the document. Okay, but for this one we're going to use URL lib. Okay, let's see how we can use URL lib. I'm going to copy this code from another, which was provided in the book. Okay, so for this we need to import URL lib.request. So I'm just going to do this. Okay, this is the one we're going to use. And now the way that URL lib works is that we can request and open a file which is hosted elsewhere, just like we work with files locally on Python. So I'm just going to copy this code here. I'm going also to get the code where I receive the URL. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm getting a URL from the user and then I'm opening it without the context here is we don't need the context here, so I'm just going to remove this part. Okay, let's try this first and see how this one works. I'm just going to print I'm just going to call this content. And I'm going to print the content. For a URL, let's try the document in the socket exercise. Okay, I'm pasting this here. Okay, so what the URL lib does for us, it just gets and opens the contents of the document we are receiving. And it is, of course, a byte string. So we retrieve the document from a URL. We need to display up to 3,000 characters and count the overall number of the characters in the document. So that's pretty easy with now I'm going to decode the content. It will be content.decode, and I'm just printing content up to 3,000, and I'm also printing the length of the content. Okay, let's run this, and I'm using the same URL. Okay, so in this case we don't have the headers, so it has 167 characters, so it's showing all, and I'm also printing the length of the characters for this document. Okay, so as you can see with a URL lib, it's much easier because it provides this URL open for us, which does the socket connection and gets the document. Okay, let's go to the last exercise for this chapter. So for this exercise, we need to change the URL links program to extract and count paragraphs. Let's get this code first. Remember, everything is in the book, so this code as well. I'm going to copy this. Okay, one thing here is that for this exercise you are going to use Beautiful Soup. Just remember to install Beautiful Soup. So you can open a terminal. If you are on Windows, open CMD and make sure to type, if you are on Linux like me, type python 3 -m pip install bs4 -user. This means that I'm going to install BS4 Beautiful Soup globally for this user. I have already done that, but you can see that the requirement is satisfied. If you are on Windows, I would recommend using python-m pip install bs4. You might need to use -- user or not. It depends on how you have installed Python. But you don't need the Python 3 like we do on Linux. Okay, so make sure to install BS4 and then you can continue with this exercise. Otherwise, the code wouldn't run on your PC. So this is the code we already have, and everything we need to change is right here. So we are making a connection using a URL lib request, opening a URL, and then we are using Beautiful Soup here to parse this HTML document. Make sure to read the explanations in the book. It's pretty clear and straightforward. So in this case, we are getting all the A tags, the anchor tags, but we need to extract and count only the paragraph tags. Okay, so one simple thing we can do here, I'm just going to remove this part, and this is going to be paragraph. Okay, so I'm just getting the P tags. So using Beautiful Soup is very, very easy. After you have created this soup object, I can just extract the P tags. Let's print tags here. Let's see what this gives us. I'm going to run this, and I'm going to give, let's check it with this website, which is Dr. Chuck's bio. So for this URL, okay, as you can see, it is giving us a list of the P tags in this URL. Oh, it's pretty long, so it is starting, let's see. Okay, so it is starting right here. As you can see, this is a list, and every element of the list is a P tag. Since the exercise asks us to just display the count, this is very, very easy. We just need to print the length of this list, because this list, all the elements in this list are P tags. So if we just get the length of the list, we get the number of tags of the paragraph tags in this URL, in this HTML. Okay, let's run this. So it's running here. Oh, I'm killing this. I'm running this again. I'm entering the URL, and there are 7 P tags in here. So this was a much easier exercise. You just need to use Beautiful Soup, which is a very nice library for web scraping and HTML parsing. Okay guys, so this is it for this chapter. Make sure to read the book and also try to work on the exercises on your own. I hope you are continuing and still learning Python, and I hope I can contribute to your learning just a little bit. Thank you for watching again, and try to share, like, subscribe if you want to support the channel, and also don't forget to check out my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome to the 12th video in the Python for Everybody series. Today we're going to solve the exercise from chapter 13 in the book, where we're going to use a Google API. Okay, so before you get started, make sure to download this code from the book. The link should be in the chapter. It's geojson.py, because we're going to use this code for our exercise. Okay, so the exercise asks us to change the code, which I just mentioned, to print out the 2-character country code from the retrieved data, and also do some error checking. So if the country code is not there, the program shouldn't stop. Okay, let's take a look at the code we're going to use. So I'm going to copy this GeoJSON into my file here. Okay, and let's see. This code is explained in the book, so you might want to take a look first, but let's go quickly through it together. Here we are using the URL lib, the JSON library from Python, and SSL. I would suggest that you leave this part exactly like it is right here. We are not using API keys from Google, that's why we need this part. That's all you need to know at the moment. And I think it's too early for you to look into SSL certificate. So just keep this part like it is and make sure you understand more of the logic that we're going to apply to the exercise than this part here. Okay, so what this is doing is it's creating an infinite loop where we get an address from the user, a location. We check if the address, the length of the string that the user inputs is, if it is less than 1, that means it's an empty string. We break the loop because we can't do anything with that. We get the params, we create an empty dictionary right here for the parameters, and we assign an address key with the address that we get from the user. Then right here we just check for the API keys, which is done by this part here, and we construct the URL we want to request to the Google API. The service URL is this one. In this case, since we don't have the API key, we're going to use this service URL, which is we're going to use this one since we don't have the keys. And then we're going to append at the end the address we get from the user. That's why we are doing this service URL plus URL lib parse URL encode, and we're going to give the address that we get from the user as a dictionary. And then we're just printing while we are retrieving the URL. We are reading the data we get, and then we try to use the JSON load string function to load everything into a JS variable. So after we load everything into JS, we dump it into the screen to see what we get from this API call. And let's see what this gives us. So I'm just going to enter the location where I am at the moment, which is Tirana in Albania. Okay, so let's see what this gives us. Okay, so it's retrieving this URL. So this was the URL constructed. It retrieved 1744 characters, which is this JSON document right here. After we have loaded the JSON and dumped it and printed it into the screen, this is what we get, which is a dictionary. And inside the dictionary, we have this results key and the status OK, which we check for the status while we perform some search inside this JSON file. This results has a list with other dictionaries inside where we have address components and for different administrative area levels and everything. We get the formatted address and the place ID and the type. So we want to find the country code right here. As you can see, the country code here is in the short name key in this dictionary. So this is a dictionary with a short name key, will give us the country code, but this dictionary is in a list. The list, as you can see, is called address components, and this is the last item in the list, address components, which is again in another dictionary, which is the first dictionary in the results list. Okay, this might get a bit confusing, so let's try to write some code first and see how this works. I'm going to kill this terminal. So to get the latitude and the longitude, as you can see, you go in the JS dictionary results, so we get the first item of the result, and then go to the key geometry. which is a dictionary by itself, and it has a key location, and inside location there's another key, lat for latitude, the same for longitude. So we will try to get the country code. Okay, so I'm going down here. I'm going to try to get the country code, which is again going to be in the JS dictionary. It is going to be in the results. Okay, and then as you let's run this again so it's easier to see where to find the country code. So we want to go in the results. So I'm going in the results here, and inside results we have a list of dictionaries with address components and formatted address and geometry. Okay, what we want is the country code. Let's see where that was. Okay, so it's in this dictionary right here, which is in the list address components. So inside results, we want to get the first dictionary. So I'm going to put the index 0, and in here we need address components. Address components, and inside address components, this is a list. We want the last item in the list. Okay, so this is where we have the short name, which is the country code. So I'm going to put this -1, which means give us the last element in the list. Let's try to print this. So this is how you usually are going to work with API. You are going to print the JSON that you get and try to navigate through the JSON, through the dictionaries, through the lists to get what you want from this API call. Okay, so I'm going to print this country code. Let's try again Tirana. And as you can see, what this print gives me, it's in the end. It's right here. So we get the long name and the short name. And we want only the short name, the country code. Okay, so this should give us the country code. Let's kill this terminal. So I'm going to get this key. This is the key we want. And I'm going to add here short name. Oh, sorry about that. Just type it in, it's better. Okay, and I'm going to add this country code so you know what we are printing here. Okay, so for the country code, I'm going into the results of the JS dictionary. This is a list, so we get the first element of the list. And the first element is a dictionary. We want the address components, which is again another list inside a dictionary. So we want the last element of that list. And then we want the short name key in a dictionary, which gives us the country code. Okay, so let's run this for Tirana. In the end, we get the country code AL, which is for Albania, which is exactly what we want in this case. Okay, now we want to add a try except for cases where there is no country code. Okay, so I'm going to put this inside the try, and an except here. I'm going to say print couldn't find the country code. Sorry, could not find the country code. Okay, so this is in a try except block. So for addresses where there is no country code, we need this try except block. Okay guys, so this was all the exercise asked us to do. Make sure to take a look again at the chapter in the book, read through how you can explore a JSON API. But since JSON APIs are mostly comprised of Python primitives, you get to navigate only through dictionaries, lists, and it's pretty much you just have to look into it and see the structure of the document, and it should be pretty easy. Okay, so this was the only exercise for this chapter. Thank you for watching. Keep on learning, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, check out my other videos. Thank you guys for the support. Bye bye.